Hello everyone, welcome to another harmonic journey. And today we're going to work with harmonizing our mind, our heart, and our body. Having this harmonic resonance through all three of them. It's a fascinating journey because these three centers are so vital to our health and our well-being on all our levels, from the physical all the way through to the spiritual. And these centers, of course, the head center and the heart center and the lower belly center, are chakra centers that we've kind of dealt with. Three of the chakras, there's 7 chakras, but also are very, very integral to Chinese medicine. The 3 dantians, the lower dantian, my hand is just below my belly button, down here on my belly, my lower belly. The heart, the middle dantian, and the upper dantian. So making sure that these are in harmony. Now what's interesting about this is, so we have the Indian system, the Hindu system, then we have the Chinese system, but also recently in the Western system of looking at things, psychologically and medically as well, they talk about the 3 brains. There's actually 3 brains. We have our brain, our cerebral brain. I think there's another word for it, but the brain in our head. And then we have the brain of our heart, that actually there are brain cells in the actual heart. And the heart does inform the brain. So there's a lot of evidence that the heart has its own intelligence. Of course, we know that, but medical science is beginning to figure that out too. So when we say the heart knows, or the heart's intelligence, the heart sees, the heart listens, all of those to me are actual realities. We just have to move into our heart. And then, of course, there's our belly, the brain down here. For many years now, they've talked about locating a second brain down here, that there's actually a lot of information that the belly gives up into the heart and into the brain as well. So this idea of uniting these 3 centers, in many ways, they're already united. But because of our tendency, particularly in Western society, to live in our heads, we've kind of cut ourselves off from this harmony that we can possibly have. So today's harmonic journey is going to take us a little bit down into our bodies. And then as we go down, we're going to come up inwardly, much like we do in spiral wave, actually. Except this time, instead of using it necessarily as we talk about it in spiral wave as a standing, letting it go down to kind of relax us in many ways and stretch the body. Here we're letting ourselves do that in a psychological or more awareness context. So let's get started here. As always, we just ask for the highest and purest light from the highest and purest source to surround and fill each one of us, the space we're in, and ourselves for the highest good. We call for the mystical traveler consciousness from within our hearts to transmute, release, dissolve any upset, negativity, fear, worry, concern, dis-ease that may be impinging upon our energy at this time. So we ask it to be taken back into the nothingness from which it came for the highest good. We come into our loving hearts through the Christ, that loving center. We can breathe in and out through our hearts. I ask for the presence of the Lord Jesus Christ to be with us, guiding us, assisting us, blessing us, and protecting us. And I also ask for the energy and the presence of John Roger, my spiritual teacher, to be with us and infusing all that we're doing here for our highest good. So we have the energy field set, and if you've been following along, you know that I love to set the energy field. That's what does the work here, quite frankly. There's 2 things. It's the energy field and your openness to it. That's really the whole deal here. So we just provide the context, and then you just allow yourself to set your intention, be in this energy field. I call it the aquarium that we're swimming in. and just enjoy yourself, to relax any part of you, to let go, to bring healing and balance and awareness to whatever level you wish. That's what's really going on, and your openness to that is really the key. But before I ask you to be open, I want you to feel safe, and that's why we have this energy field, and that's why I invoke what I do for the highest good always. So we're really lost in our heads. We really are. I mean, one great example is, if you remember the Disney cartoon, The Sorcerer's Apprentice, where Mickey Mouse is kind of playing around with magic and he kind of overdoes it, and all these brooms start manifesting, more and more brooms, more and more brooms. And it's kind of like that's what happens in our mind. You know, one thought begets another thought, begets another thought, begets another thought, and before you know it, we're just lost with all of these thoughts, and we kind of remain there, actually. A lot of us aren't in our bodies, and even more so exacerbated by the devices that we're constantly looking at. We're looking at our devices, our heads are frozen, our posture is bowed over, but we're in our heads. We're not connected to the body. So the first thing we want to do is get out of our heads. And one way we can do that is bring our awareness to our bodies. And I'd love for you to revisit the Tao of abdominal breathing, because in there we really talk about bringing the breath down. But we're not necessarily doing abdominal breathing today. What we're doing really is just letting the energy come down. We can do that by, as I said, focusing on the belly and just bring our awareness from here down. But today I want to do it in a very natural way, which is using gravity, almost like we're letting gravity, which we do in the spiral wave, to bring down our energy and our tension so that everything is kind of dropping into the ground and into our feet. Here, we're just dropping our awareness. We're allowing gravity to take down our awareness through our body into our lower bellies. Now, I mentioned earlier on, we have a second brain in our belly. The belly, most of our immune system is in our bellies. Our bellies create neurochemicals that are actually very, very healing. Serotonin and areas, hormones that allow us to relax and be at peace, really. I mean, there's very much a oneness here. So when John Rogers says the whole body is the heart, we need to look at ourselves as a complete being. Indeed, in later sessions, we'll talk about whole body breathing. And in many ways, we're doing that right now. We're just letting the breath settle. Now remember, we are receiving the breath. We don't have to take a breath. And you've heard me say my favorite metaphor, analogy, and for some people an absolute truth, is that when God made man, he took the dust of the earth and breathed into it. Now, to me, what it's telling us is that we're breathed by God, which just, that thought is a meditation in itself. Just being and allowing ourselves to be breathed by God. But for now, just keep your eyes closed, or if you'd like to, so keep your eyes closed. I haven't even asked you yet, but perhaps close your eyelids just as an awareness. You don't have to, you can keep your eyes open. But I find it useful because now the outside world is shut off, and I'm just going to let my awareness drift down as if gravity is taking it down. And this is just a slow, patient process. I start moving into my body sensations. For example, I can immediately feel my hands now activating. They're buzzing and shimmering with life. My shoulders are gradually dissolving downwards. I didn't feel like I had a lot of tension in my shoulders, but there always seems to be another centimeter, another ½ inch or so, quarter inch, an eighth of an inch, just something to just relax downwards. And that little bit suddenly releases the body. I want my head upright if I can. Of course, you may be doing this lying down, which is perfectly fine. So I think either upright or laying down. We don't want to be slumped for the simple reason is it's difficult to get the energy down passing through gravity if we're slumped over. At the same time, we don't want to be stiff. You know, God insulted the Israelites by calling them a stiff-necked people. A stiff-necked people. That was an insult. Are we stiff-necked? When we hold ourselves and we're just like rigid, like I'm doing right now, I mean, it's just like, it's no wonder we get lost in our thoughts. There's no way for the thoughts to kind of come down through our body. They're just stuck up there, held there by our rigidity, by our resistance, by our stubbornness. So we want with each breath that we receive for it almost to create this slight wave through the body to make sure that we're not being resistant, that the breath is moving through us, and in many ways we're articulating our spine, our cervical spine, the spine of our neck, that's moving ever so slightly with each breath, with each wave of the breath through our bodies. Now my breath and my awareness is coming down into my heart as I'm moving more and more out of my head. Again, I can just bring my attention to body sensations. Now your body will buzz more as you, and buzz could be a word, shimmer could be a word, dance would be another word, like the cells dancing and singing. I like that image. Cells forming a choir, a harmonic choir. So now finally my energy is now in my belly. I can still feel it in my hands. In some areas, the energy is kind of a little, I don't want to say dead, but unalive, not as alive, particularly in my back. The middle of my back is kind of feeling a little numb, if for want of a better word. So as soon as I acknowledge that, I noticed that I just take in a spontaneous breath. I wasn't trying to do that. I just brought my awareness into the middle of my back. And now it's beginning to release. It's almost like, you're acknowledging that I'm here. And I think all our bodies do that. They may not be saying those words, but remember that each cell is divine. Each cell is its own world. One tiny cell is a universe unto itself. And we have 50 to 100 trillion of them, depending on who you talk to. All coordinated, working to form this living temple that we live in. Now what's wonderful is as you allow the breath to descend into the belly, something wonderful starts to happen. The belly starts to open. Look at it like a flower in many ways. It relaxes, and thus our whole body relaxes. We're out of our heads at this point, not thinking about anything in particular, but just allowing ourselves to experience our bodies and loving every part of them. Bringing ourselves into greater resonance and health and well-being. Now this marvelous thing happens is that as this belly opens, something arises inside and the energy now begins to go upwards, up through the center of our bodies. Almost like a tree growing. Nothing dramatic about it at all. It's just that it's rising bubbling upwards. We're grounded at the same time it comes up to our hearts, and our hearts begin to kind of unfurl as well and open. And we feel a new sense of aliveness and vulnerability. And there's no rush with this, and if you're not feeling it first time, don't worry. Just want to give you a sense of what can take place. And then our heart, which again informs the brain, moves upwards, the energy moves upwards into the center of our heads, and we arrive there. We arrive there in a different place. We're not accessing our thoughts and our usual crazy monkey mind. We are in our heads, but we're not coming from our heads. The energy is there, enabling us now to take a spiritual journey, if we wish, for the highest good. You may be seeing colors there, but we have a different quietude, one in which we're supported by the heart and by the belly, by the body. Let's just take a minute or two to feel that integration. I'm going to allow you to continue if you wish. But for those of you who need to get on with your day, you can begin to come slowly back. Berush Beshan.